Welcome to CEC lectures. Myself Dr. Preeti Jagmani from Department of Computer Science, Aryabhat College, University of Delhi. So I welcome you all to the second lecture of this series of database management systems. And in our first lecture we have seen the introduction or the terminologies, like we have seen the data, then we have understood the term database and then database management system, and also we have covered two storage techniques. One is the flat file system and another one is the database approach. Now this is established that database approach is a better way of storage and management of data as compared to the flat file system. So in this lecture today we are going to explore all those characteristics, all those features of database approach which are making this superior as compared to the flat file system. So if we talk about when we say the term database approach is actually the method of designing and implementing databases which ensures various features like accuracy, consistency and easy access of data. So what all are the features of database approach? That means we can say what all are the characteristics which are included here is we need to maintain data integrity, we need to maintain data sharing, the facility for data sharing, we need to have the facility for backup and recovery and so on and so forth. So let us try to explore these terms one by one and then we will be able to establish a difference between the flat file system and the database management system very concretely, we can say. So first term, let us try to see what is data integrity. Data integrity is actually, we can say, the accuracy and consistency of the data which is stored inside the database. Now what kind of accuracy and consistency I am talking about. So for example, I am having although it mostly it does not happen, but even if there is a data which is stored at two places, one place is saying X amount and another place is saying, let us say, Y amount. So we can say the data is inconsistent. That means the two versions of the data should say the similar thing. So this is what you call is consistency of the data, and accuracy is a simple term which you all understand. So data integrity basically refers to the accuracy and consistency. Consistency means similar version of the data at every place, similar version of the same data at every place. Now how is this integrity being ensured or being maintained in case of database approaches is there are various techniques. One of them is data validation, another one is the data constraints and third one is the data normalization and many other. So let us try to see what are these techniques. So data validation, so basically while entering the data we would like to check that whether the data being entered is correct or not. So for example, I am entering the age, let us say age of a person. So age of a person cannot be logically it should not be more than 100 or max it should not be more than 125 or something of that sort. It should not be negative, which is less than 0 also. So basically or another idea could be of this data validation is, let us say database of employees is being prepared and information is being entered into that database. So it is the responsibility of the program to check that employee ID should be unique, because employee ID is a number which is a unique number and it cannot be the similar employee ID cannot be given to two employees, I can say. Or another idea is the employee age cannot be negative. Employees salary should be more than 0 rupees, or it could have a maximum limit for a particular database also. So all these types of checks when I am going to put in order to ensure that the data should be accurate and consistent. That is what you called data validation. Or for example, if I am going to put some constraints, if I am going to put some constraint for data that salary should be greater than 0 and less than maybe let us say 10 lakh dollars or 1 crore dollars or something of that sort. All these data validation and data constraints are there in order to ensure or in order to maintain the integrity of the data which is being stored inside the database. Also there is a concept of data normalization which I will be covering in the upcoming lectures. Apart from this, if we talk about another term which is data sharing. So, in the previous lecture we have seen that or we have heard that the data sharing facility is available with the database management system or it is not available with the flat file system. So, if we talk about data sharing is ability of multiple users to access and update the data in the database at the same time. That is what you called data sharing. Now, this data sharing, how this data sharing is going to be implemented? This data sharing can be implemented by using some techniques which are available with the database approach, and these techniques are locking or we can say concurrency control. So, locking as in as the name suggests, it is the process of preventing other users from accessing a specific piece of data while it is being updated. So, for example, there is an account number, let us say 1001, and the amount in this account number is being updated, and at the same point of time, exactly at the same point of time, someone has deposited or someone has debited the data. Someone has debited the amount from that 1001 account. So, while the amount is being updated, other users are not allowed to kind of we can say access that data, because that will leave the data in an incorrect state we can say. So, let the data first get updated and then any addition or subtraction in case of withdrawal or deposit can be done. So, while that particular data is being updated, that is being logged and prevented prevented the other users from accessing that particular data. So, this is what you called locking, that is locking one particular piece of data in order to ensure that no one can update it, and this is being done in order to maintain a particular we can say correct state of the data. Apart from this, we have many other techniques like concurrency control or some other techniques of this sort that we will be covering in upcoming lectures. Then when we talk about backup and recovery is also something which is very important and create a thick line of difference when we compare flat file system and your database management system. So, in flat file system, backup and recovery is very weak, or we can say it is not possible. While if we talk about the database management systems, we have provisions for making or for having the backup of data and installing the recovery as and when required in case of unexpected data loss or data failures or something of that sort. So, basically when we talk about backup and recovery, these two terms are very common. Backup is having the another copy of the data, and recovery is in case of the unexpected events that may cause data loss, we should be able to take the data from the backup and we will be able to recover our normal state of the system. So, that is what you call backup and recovery. So, what are the provisions for backup and recovery if we see database management system, sorry, if we see database approach? So, these provisions are database backups, that means at regular point of time these backups are being taken up. So, for example, if we talk about a bank, so these the bank is going to take a backup at every evening we can say because before the closing of the day. And then we have transaction logs. Transaction logs are basically, we can say, the footprints or the records of all the changes made to the database, that which particular user has done what kind of operations, whether it is an insertion, updation and deletion, also which user is performing this. All this traces of changes or the traces of excess of data is being recorded in the files which are known as log files. These logs are required to reconstruct the state of database at a specific point of time in case the data is being lost. And in case the data is being lost and we have transaction logs, that can be very easily recovered. Or we can have one more provision, which is, we can say, replication of the data. Replication is copying the data onto multiple servers, although it is we can say it is causing some duplicacy, but yes, it is very crucial in case the data is being lost. So, apart from this backup and recovery and this data sharing, then data integrity, all these terms which are very easily implementable and also available if we talk about database management system. Another term in this series is the scalability. So, scalability is without compromising on the performance, your system should be able to handle a large amount of data and a large amount of users. Now, if we talk about flat file systems, obviously flat file systems are not having this kind of provisions or the techniques to ensure the scalability. While if we see database management systems or the approach of database, yes, various techniques are available to ensure scalability, and the two techniques here are horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So, let us see in very briefly that what is this horizontal and vertical scaling. Horizontal scaling is process of adding more server to the database systems in order to handle the increased load. That is what you called horizontal scaling. And if we talk about vertical scaling is the process of adding more resources such as memory and CPU to a single server. In horizontal scaling, we are increasing the number of servers, and in vertical scaling we are not increasing the number of servers. In fact, we are increasing the resources of the server so that it should handle the increased load. Or this vertical scaling, if you can say, it is kind of upgrading the hardware or adding more memory, adding more CPU or something of that sort. So, vertical scaling is possible, then horizontal scaling is also possible, and these vertical scaling and horizontal scaling, both techniques ensure scalability in case of database approach. Then let us say we talk about the next thing which is available or which is very crucial and also available in case of the database approach, that is security. So, if we say what is security? So, security is your protection of your data from unauthorized access, from unauthorized modification or from unauthorized deletion. So, basically from unauthorized we can say users, your data should be protected. That is what security is. And how this security is being maintained in case of a database? So, for maintaining this security, there are provisions of authentication, authorization and encryption. Now, let us see. Authentication, a process of verifying the identity of the user. So, for example, I am logging in a database management system and it is asking me for the username and password. So, username and password, or it could be another kind of authentication, could be biometric authentication or something of that sort. So, asking for this username and password or for biometric authentication is a way in which the process of verification of the identity of the user, that particular user who is trying to access the database, is being checked, is being verified, we can say. Not only the verification of the verification of the entity identity of the user is important, but apart from that, which particular user should be given what all permissions is also very important, and this comes under the purview of authorization. So, basically authorization is process of granting access to specific resources in the database based on the user's roles or the permission which a user is having. So, for example, let us say I am talking about the salary data. So, salary data is something which should be accessible to the accounts department only, and even if your admin departments wants to access the data, that data should be available in the read only mode. So, basically if an admin user is, or let us say user 1 is trying to access the data who is from the admin department, and the data I am talking about is the salary data. So, is trying to access that particular data, and only read permission is there, while a user, let us say if is from the account section and want to access the salary data, there are all kind of permissions including read, write, execute, each and every permission is available to that particular data. Now, how this difference is being created? By which particular ID or what is the role given to that particular user. So, we have access control list or role based access control, this is what we can say. So, role of the admin is limited in case of salary, while the role of accounts is unlimited in case of the salary. So, this is what you call role based access. So, all these kinds of access control list or role based access control are very common provisions when we talk about authorization of data. Apart from this authentication and authorization, we also have the term encryption, which is the process of converting data into a coded format which can only be read by the authorized users. And these encryption techniques includes symmetric key encryption or asymmetric key encryption, and all these techniques we can say are very common. So, if we want to see what are the characteristics which database approach is providing us while are missing in case of flat file system. So, these could be your data integrity, which can be maintained using validation or data constraints or maybe data normalization. After data integrity, data sharing is available by the mechanisms of locking and concurrency control. Then we have the mechanisms of backup and recovery, which are which can be performed with the help of transaction logs than taking regular data backups. Apart from that, we have scalability also, and we have techniques to ensure horizontal scaling as well as the vertical scaling, and so on and so forth. Then apart from this, we have security mechanisms which are very tight in case of database management system, while these security management provisions are actually missing when we talk about the flat file system. So, in this lecture we have also seen that what are the characteristics of the database approach which are we can say exclusive to the approach of database and which are not available in the flat file system. Now, as we have understood all these terms and few more terms to come in upcoming lectures, we will be able to see a very we will be able to understand the difference between flat file system and the database management system very easily. So, let us say if I am going to say that data integrity can be ensured in database management system while cannot be ensured in case of flat file system. So, you all are able to understand that what actually data integrity is and how this can be ensured in database approach while it is missing in the file system. So, with this we have covered the characteristics of the database approach, which will help us in the upcoming lectures in establishing a difference between the flat file system, or we can say all the advantages of the database systems we have seen. All these are also known as database advantages. So, here is a list of references which is being used for the preparation of lecture. Hope you have enjoyed the lecture. I will see you in the next. Thank you.